The first Metal Gear Solid is widely considered to be one of the greatest games of all time, so it should come as no surprise that over the last decade or so, there's been a growing desire among the fanbase to see it remade. After all, while it might be an absolute classic, the blocky PS1 visuals and data controls can make it hard to recommend to newcomers. However, what many people tend to neglect is that only 6 years after its release, Metal Gear Solid did actually receive an official remake in the form of the Twin Snakes. Like I said, the original Metal Gear Solid might be a classic, but it didn't take long for it to begin to show its age. The jump from the 5th console generation to the 6th was massive and meant that the graphics, which had been cutting edge in 1998, looked downright primitive by the time Sons of Liberty released only 3 years later. So when Nintendo approached Kojima and Konami in 2003 about the possibility of bringing Metal Gear to the Gamecube, the idea of following in Capcom's footsteps and providing Nintendo fans with an enhanced version of one of the most critically acclaimed titles they'd missed out on from the previous generation made perfect sense. However, with Kojima and the Metal Gear team hard at work on Snake Eater, the bulk of the development for Twin Snakes was handled by Silicon Knights, who'd recently proven themselves to know their way around the GameCube with 2002's Eternal Darkness. However, the fact that Twin Snakes was, and to this day remains, a true GameCube exclusive is part of the reason it flies under the radar. As fondly as Nintendo's little lunchboxes remember these days, it massively underperformed expectations, ensuring much of its library would be showing up on most overlooked games lists for years to come. But what might be an even larger issue is that most of the Metal Gear fan base who did actually play the Twin Snakes absolutely despise the damn thing. See, Silicon Knights didn't just bring the visuals and mechanics in line with Sons of Liberty and call it a day. That was the original intention, but when Kojima learned of this, he expressed his disappointment and essentially told the director of the game cinematics to add in more crazy shit, and as a result, Solid Snake ended up getting buffed into a borderline superhero who's capable of cartwheeling 10 feet into the air and pulling off 360 quickscopes. To say that most fans were pissed about these changes is the definition of an understatement. Whenever the Twin Snakes is brought up and somebody asks whether they should check it out, you can be certain about 90% of the responses are going to shoot that idea down and claim that it bastardized everything great about the original. And look, I get where those people are coming from, I do. Most of us have media that we hold sacred and would be critical of any changes made to it, let alone changes that are as dramatic as the ones featured in the Twin Snakes. But the thing is, despite considering myself to be a pretty big Metal Gear Solid fan, I don't have any actual nostalgia for the first game. Liar! My introduction to the series was Sons of Liberty, followed by Snake Eater. Then in 2007, when I was looking for something to tide me over on the Wii in between the release of Metroid Prime 3 and Mario Galaxy, I discovered the existence of the Twin Snakes and quickly tracked down a copy. And honestly, coming off of Sons of Liberty and Snake Eater, there wasn't anything that really felt that out of place in Twin Snakes. Like in a universe where a morbidly obese man can glide around on roller skates while getting wine drunk, Ocelot can survive having a motorcycle drive off of his face, and Big Boss has an encounter with a ghost. The idea that Snake could do a backflip off of a missile didn't seem that far-fetched to me. And even after playing through the original, there are still a number of moments that I prefer in the remake. Gray Fox was already one of the most badass characters in the franchise, and the reworked cutscenes really worked to his advantage, as the extensive bullet time and acrobatic choreography suits the whole ninja thing he's got going on. The Twin Snakes' take on him squaring off against Rex is legitimately one of my favorite moments in the entire series. I also love the throwdown between Snake and Liquid on top of Rex, which has them mirroring each other's moves and even features a full-on Rocky 3 moment, and the extra theatrics added into Ocelot's whole revolver routine just suit his character perfectly. If we do ever get that long-rumored Metal Gear movie, I really wouldn't be surprised to see the action more closely resemble the direction of the Twin Snakes. While the original game had more of a grounded, conventional spy movie tone to it, the series quickly embraced a more campy and over-the-top atmosphere. But the Twin Snakes is still following the story of the original, which means even at its most ridiculous, it's still nowhere near as zany as some of the later entries. I mean, it's not like there's a chain-smoking monkey or any Kodak conversations revealing that our hero believes in the existence of Santa Claus. It wasn't just the cutscenes that were tweaked though, as Silicon Knights also brought back almost all of the original cast to re-record the audio and made some slight alterations to the script to bring it closer to the Japanese version. Now I'll admit, on the whole, I do prefer the voice work in the original. Aside from a few outliers like Mei Ling, the voice acting in the PS1 version sounds more natural, and changing the script does mean we lose out on some great lines.
You live in Alaska too. You know of the World Eskimo Indian Olympics?
Yeah, I know it. Must be a real threat in the muck duck eating contest.
You live in Alaska too. You know of the World Eskimo Indian Olympics?
With that strength, you must have been training in the stick pull and four-man carry. It's a mistake for a sniper to reveal her location.
Is that right? Well, I'm going to send you a love letter, my dear. Do you know what that is? It's a bullet straight from my gun to your heart.
It's a mistake for a sniper to reveal her location.
You think so? Well, a message from me is a message from death. If I'm close, you will know death is close.
That being said, the voice acting is on par and sounds consistent with every other game in the series, and there are a couple of readings that I do think genuinely land better here.
We're short-handed, so make this little torture show of yours as short as possible.
Torture? This is an interrogation.
As you wish. We're short-handed, so make this little torture show of yours as short as possible.
Torture? This is an interrogation.
As you wish.
A surveillance camera? A surveillance camera.
But the truth is, even if I hated all of that stuff, Twin Snakes would probably still be my preferred way to experience the events of the first game, simply due to the graphical and gameplay enhancements. You can increase the resolution of the original as much as you want, but at a certain point it's like trying to get water out of a stone. Twin Snakes, on the other hand, still holds up and upscales rather nicely. Nobody's going to confuse it for a modern game, but from a purely visual standpoint, comparing it and the PS1 version side by side is night and day. Shadow Moses is one of the most iconic locations in gaming history, so just having a better looking version of it to explore and geek out over makes the whole experience worth it for the novelty factor alone. But it's the gameplay improvements carried over from Sons of Liberty that really put Twin Snakes over the top and makes it so much more enjoyable for me to play through. Many fans don't like these changes because introducing mechanics from Sons of Liberty into a map that wasn't designed around them does significantly reduce the difficulty. Turret cameras, which were the bane of my existence in the PS1 version, can now easily be disposed of with a well-placed shot from the SOCOM in first-person mode, and the Ocelot fight takes about 15 seconds as you can literally just stand in place and shoot the top of his head, which pokes out from behind cover.
Just what I'd expect from the man with the same code as the boss.
But the thing is, nobody forces you to utilize these mechanics. If you're a purist, you can make your way through the whole game, snapping necks and relying on the finicky auto-aim to get through encounters like you've always done. But I don't love these games because of the challenge they provide. Yeah, sure, occasionally I'll bump one up to the highest difficulty and test my skills, but my favorite thing to do in Metal Gear has always been just dicking around with the AI. I've spent far more time than I'd care to admit just distracting guards with magazines, shooting out their radios, and knocking them out with nut shots. None of that stuff is possible in the PS1 version, but it's all here in the Twin Snakes, and the amount of childish joy that it provides me with easily offsets the cost of Ocelot getting turned into a total jobber. There's also a number of small quality of life changes, which just remove a lot of minor annoyances and provide for a smoother experience overall. The most notable of these are the ability to grab a trank version of the sniper rifle close to where Meryl shot down by Wolf, and the addition of 2 pipes in the underground base where Rex is being held that allows you to instantly freeze and heat up the PAL key. Now, backtracking for the sniper rifle doesn't actually bother me because it makes sense within the context of the plot and it only takes like 5 minutes. But I'm not exactly going to turn down the opportunity to cut that down even more. On the other hand, I've always thought the PAL key nonsense was total bullshit. Back before I knew about those lovely pipes, that damn PAL key was the main reason I didn't return to Twin Snakes quite as often as Sons of Liberty and Snake Eater. It's not even a puzzle, the game tells you exactly what to do, so you're just running in circles and forced to wait around like an asshole. The rest of the game is wonderfully paced, and then you get to this section and all that momentum just falls off a cliff. So yeah, as you can imagine, once I learned about the pipes, I've never looked back, and my experience with Twin Snakes has only improved as a result. And despite all the changes it did make, in many ways this is likely to be the most faithful remake of Metal Gear Solid that we ever get. If you think that importing the moveset from Sons of Liberty makes it too easy, then imagine being able to tear through Shadow Moses with the fluidity of Venom Snake. If Konami does ever produce another remake, chances are they're going to redesign and expand upon Shadow Moses in order to bring it in line with modern standards. So Twin Snakes could be the only time we get to see Shadow Moses more or less as it was in 1998, just with a new coat of paint slapped on top of it. So if you've always wanted to check out the first Metal Gear Solid but haven't been able to look past its age, then I easily recommend Twin Snakes, as in many ways I do consider it to be the definitive version of Snake's first 3D outing. And if you're a longtime fan who's been put off by the Twin Snakes reputation, then I strongly urge you to consider giving it a second look. I give Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes 11 nut shots out of 12.